This 6 foot below the surface of the Earth is the coolest place in the entire colony. And it draws down the hot, stale air from above. How I've been bitten. Draws it down from above, down these deep, long chimneys which extend right up the side.
Sorry, David, cut. We'll have to do it again. We couldn't see you.
If you're making a series of films about animal behaviour, seeing the narrator may or may not be useful, but you certainly need to see the animals. This is the tropical rainforest, famous for being the richest proliferation of life on Earth. So where are the animals? You can walk for hours on end and not see any at all, let alone get close enough to film them, but they're here all right. You can hear them all around. At last, something. Only a fleeting glance and hardly the most appealing view. Chimpanzees. They're hunting colobus monkeys. But I only know that because I'm with an expert, Christoph Busch. Christoph is a Swiss zoologist who, with his wife Edwige, was the first to discover that chimpanzees in these West African forests regularly catch monkeys. Each member of the hunting team has his own particular job in setting up an ambush. To me, this seemed total confusion, and it was only Christoph's explanations and predictions that enabled the cameraman and me to follow the battle. And when the hunt was over, it was only because we were with him, wearing the same kind of clothes as he does, that they allowed us to get close to them as they relaxed after the chase.
How did you manage to get these animals so accustomed to you so that we could stand as close to them as this?
Oh, just patience. Took us 5 years.
5 years?
5 years just following them, being always very quiet, never aggressive. Always the same colors, same clothes, and patience.
And how long every day?
Oh, it's difficult. You know, at the beginning we are 10 hours in the forest and you maybe see them in 2 seconds. And it's just by accumulating contacts that with the time the contacts get longer. And after sometimes, now you see, you were able to follow them hours, but at the beginning it was absolutely impossible. It's quite difficult to imagine what it is at the beginning, just bottoms running away, that's all.
So after 5 years, you could get close to them.
Yeah.
But then you now know them individually, don't you?
For sure. You know, that's the main purpose of this long-term study, is to work on the individual level.
How many are there in that group now that you know?
Now there are about 60.
And you know all 60?
All 60, yeah. But 2 very newborn babies that are less than a month old. So.
Yes. How do you recognize them?
Actually, the face of a chimp is very easy to recognize. How they look, and the nose form, and the ears. And I say even that I recognize better chimpanzees than the human beings, because just the eyebrow, I know which individual it is. Which a human is more difficult.
Well, what about their voices?
The voices, I can recognize each male individually by the voices. They are very clear, and I think all the females should be possible to recognize. I mean, the chimps recognize each other for sure, just by the voice. I can do it only with the males, but it's still a very great help. Now we are just following the hunt, and it's important to be with the hunters. And if I know the voice of the males, I can say, okay, here it's Brutus, let's go there, because I know Brutus is the best hunter.
Chasing bottoms and recognizing eyebrows for Christoph are means to an end. understanding the way chimpanzee society works. His research has shed unexpected light on our own ancestry. It used to be thought that our primate ancestors only developed tool-using, cooperative hunting and food sharing when they left the rainforest and colonized the open savannas. Christoph's findings, however, contradict that.
And when we compare chimpanzees, we are surprised to see it's the opposite. It's the forest chimps who tend to hunt more frequently, in a more sophisticated way, cooperate much more, share more food, make more tools, use more tools. It's rather a surprise, actually.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Does that mean they're going?
No, they might be going, but if you have a group resting like that, infants, there is always some fights.
When we were talking earlier, you inadvertently described yourself as being a member of the chimp group. You said that someone was coming to join us, and actually you meant a group of chimps.
Yeah, I mean, I feel part of the group, but I'm sure the chimps don't feel me as part of the group. So if I say us, it's just my personal bias, because I have to behave like a chimp.
Yes.
And sometimes I even feel the way they look at me that I'm making mistakes. So I really...
What kind of mistake?
As I told you, it's when we are going on patrol to the neighbor territory. So we tend to be very, very, you see my mistake. They tend to be very, very silent. And they don't even, you've seen the way they walk. They try not to make a single noise. I'm just a human being and I'm making a lot of noise. And they always look at me in a reproval way, as if I make too much noise. So I'm trying to be part of the group. And for hunting, it's the same thing, because a group of hunters will arrive under a group of colobus without being noticed. So I've actually trained myself alone to walk under a group of colobus so that I will not disturb my chimpanzees before they hunt.
It's only too easy to empathize with chimpanzees, but ants surely are totally inscrutable. How could you possibly develop a fellow feeling for these? If anyone has done so, it must be Nigel Franks. He guided our filming of army ants in Panama, and I also tracked him down to his laboratory in Bath University. He confessed to me that he really liked ants.
It's a very strange thing. I also admire them enormously. And it's funny, if we were to walk onto Barra Colorado Island together and find some army ants at last, I can hardly believe what I'm seeing, all the complexity and all the organization. And my heart skips a beat. I mean, it's just so exciting. You can stand 2 inches from the edge of a raid trail, and they don't even know you're there. And that's a beautiful thing about studying ants, that their world is so different that you can stand and observe them, like an Olympian god without even interfering.
These merciless hunters bring back their booty to the bivouac, 1 million ants clinging together in a huge ball. Although this campsite is always shifting, with Nigel's guidance we found it. But what goes on inside? The only way past these vicious guards was with a long optical probe, normally used by doctors to look inside the human body. And the view it gave thrilled Nigel as much as us.
I mean, if you think about it, these army ants are devouring other ants. And you've got all these voracious larvae. How on earth do they control them? Because all these hungry things are living inside a wall of ants. How do they prevent them eating one another? And in fact, nobody before that filming expedition had been able to look into a bivouac without disturbing it. And to see how they were beautifully holding on to each larva. I mean, there's a living colony creating a basket work, and we hadn't even been able to look into it. So it was a revelation in every sense.
Is this pure research for its own sake, just because you're interested in ants, or do you think they have a deeper significance?
I see a deep significance even in studying natural history, even in just knowing what's living in this world that we're all living on. But in addition, ants have some technologies that we're only just beginning to explore. For example, there are no foremen, there's nobody in charge, the queen is not giving out instructions, and they all simply interact with one another and react to one another's successes. And in this way, we can look at how a lot of simple processing units, albeit ant workers, interact and communicate, so you get the emergence of complexity and structure. And that can tell us about technologies possibly involving teams of robots, or how to wire different computers together. After all, they're just very simple processing units. we can really learn extremely deep and extremely important lessons from studying them. And yet you can go back to the natural history and rejoice in simply looking at them.
Elephants, of course, are rather easier to spot than ants. But we hope to film some of the major events in an individual's life. And to do that, you need to know exactly who is who. Cynthia Moss in Kenya has been following one group of them for 25 years. I asked her how she'd started in the first place.
Well, the first thing we tried to do was to get to know all the elephants individually. At that time, there were about 500 to 600 elephants in the population. And that was a very nice number to begin with, because we felt that that was within the realm of possibility to know each of those individuals.
How many hundred?
Between 500 and 600.
And you could do... How long did it take you to do
Well,
that?
it took quite a long time. It took a couple of years, at least. I think, in fact, that it wasn't until 1978 that I felt that I knew every individual in the population. We recognize the whole animal now.
Do you give them names or numbers?
Well, we give them names. We started out giving the males only numbers and the females names. And, of course, I've been accused of being a female chauvinist for this. But it was hard enough thinking up enough names for the females. In fact, that's one of the major trials, is trying to think up enough names. And they each have to have a unique first 3 letters. And I've been through 5 of those names for babies books.
What's your research day like? How do you start?
Well, it depends really on what we're looking at that time. We've done a number of studies. Now, for instance, I did a study that was just on calf behavior. So what I did was to choose 14 calves and follow their lives for 18 months. Then my research day would consist of trying to find one of those calves and then stay with it and build up a record of how that calf developed. It's when it started to feed, how much it suckled, how close it stayed to its mother, when it was 1 month and when it was 9 months. Just getting the developmental material.
Filming the critical moments in the life of a calf or its mother, auntie or grandmother is only possible with such detailed knowledge. It must be very demanding, actually. I mean, you must think, oh, if only I could look at something else other than this elephant.
Never.
Really?
Never. No, that's one of the most amazing things that I find surprising, that every time I get in my car in the morning and go out to find elephants, I'm looking forward to what I'm going to see. I know I'm going to see something interesting, and I've never been bored.
Do you have favorites among you?
Yes, I do. I'm embarrassed to say.
Why?
I don't know. It's something about the way they interact, maybe with the rest of the family, certain personalities that we like. And I have a new favorite now whose name is Tulip. She's just a very sweet calf and is full of fun. She does a lot of playing, and she comes around the camp a lot. That whole family is here, so I see them a lot. You do tend to get very caught up in their lives. What's going to happen to them? When is so-and-so going to reach sexual maturity? When is, will she have the calf? Will it live? Who will she mate with? You do get rather caught up in the whole history of the families.
There may be some austere and puritanical scientist who would say that if you call an elephant, say, Elizabeth, you would be almost inevitably conferring human characteristics on it. Do you think that's a danger?
Not any longer. I think it could be in the beginning of a study, but elephants are such overwhelming creatures in their own lifestyle that you soon stop any ideas that they might be human or might have human attributes.
But we must share some characteristics. I mean, characteristics like bad temper or jealousy or sexiness or something.
I think there are some that you could use English words to describe, such as I've always said that elephants can experience something that similar to joy. You just have to be with them for a short while and you realize that they're certainly experiencing some kind of emotion. Now, if you use the word joy, you're accused of being anthropomorphic, but there is some sort of elephantine joy. We just maybe don't have the vocabulary to create a new word. but it's certainly there, and it's certainly similar to human excitement and happiness, but I don't know what you could call it that would satisfy the purists.
Cynthia's elephants were very cooperative, but these waders in Norfolk are always extremely nervous. To film them effectively, you need more than just powerful lenses and hides. You also need some inside knowledge, and RSPB warden Paul Fisher certainly has that.
When the tide begins to come in, it covers over the feeding grounds, the mud flats out there, and progressively the birds are forced more and more to come in towards the shore onto smaller areas of mud, gathering together in larger and larger numbers.
He knows that the biggest tides drive the birds off the estuary, forcing them to roost in a nearby gravel pit.
I think that we can look forward to the next couple of days when there are going to be particularly high tides, amongst the highest that we can expect in the year. And at that time, although it doesn't look much now, looking out over these shingle sites, we can expect to see 40, 50, 60,000 birds roosting here.
One shot we particularly wanted was of a huge flock wheeling above my head. With the birds all crowded together as predicted, Paul knew exactly the right tactics needed to get it.
Around here somewhere? Yeah, somewhere around here for the exact flight line. Well then, yes, I think probably about here in fact, because the birds will fly in from that direction there over the wall, yeah, and make a beeline for this part of the marsh over there.
Okay.
So I would think that if we had the camera crew standing here,
right,
I think they'll fly practically over his head.
Okay.
Now, as so often, it's just a case of patient waiting. And there are warmer places to do that than the Norfolk coast at dawn in November. They'll only make the flight from gravel pit to mud flat once. If we miss it, we may not get another chance.
They're on the road.
Just what we wanted. But birds can be very obliging, and we never had a more cooperative subject during the whole of our 3 years of filming than the one I met down here among the stunted palm scrub of southern Florida. It's a harsh territory as far as birds are concerned. Food is hard to find, and there aren't many places in which to build a nest. But it's the home of a particularly interesting bird, and one that has been studied almost as intensively as any bird in the world. And this is it. The Florida scrub jay. Because every jay in this part of the world has been banded for the past almost 20 years, we know who each one is and what part they play in the community. And that's all thanks to Glenn Wolfenden.
What does that noise mean? Is that one of your inventions, or is it one of their calls?
I think it's a bird invention. It's a rough imitation of the call that they make when they want to chase somebody out of their territory.
So why do they come to you if you're making a call that means go for my territory?
For quite a few years, they've also learned that when we do it, and I'm sure they can tell us from other birds, it means food, such as the peanut bits I have in my hand.
Do you deliberately try and tame them?
Absolutely, because our objective is to have the birds so tame to us that they tend to ignore us. And therefore, when we go to follow their behavior, we can watch a bird behaving normally. Now, I have to add to that as soon as we want to watch them behaving normally, I take the food away, then they begin foraging on their own or whatever other normal activity they follow.
And so what do they think that you are, do you suppose?
That's complicated. It also varies with the individuals. We're here with the very tamest individuals. Obviously, we're a food supply. When we go to visit their nest, they're a little uneasy about us. I don't think, however, the tamest ones consider us predators, perhaps more comparable to a deer that we're browsing through the habitat that might bump into the nest, so they try and scold us as they would a deer, just to move us away from the nest.
So the result is that you can actually know every one of these birds as an individual, is that right?
Absolutely, and the way we do that, we can't tell individuals apart by their appearance. We can tell them apart by the color rings that they have on the legs. And we have 10 colors, a silver band, and when you put all these together, why, you could have 1,200 unique combinations before you had to duplicate any names.
And who is this one that is sitting
This is a 1-year-old female. Her name is Silver Azure Green Dash. The silver is the metal band, and the dash tells you which leg the bands are on.
And when was she hatched? What's her life history?
Yeah, she's just under a year old. She was hatched in a nest relatively nearby here. Let's see if there's somebody back, and this is a different one. This is its sister. She was hatched in a nest within 100 feet of here just about a year ago.
And what's the advantage of knowing this, all this detailed study of every single bird?
Well, our objective is to really know the sociology of a wild animal, the demography, the behavior of the animal. And if they're tame like this, why, we can come out here and follow virtually their every move with their paying very little attention to us. The Florida scrub jay has a social system, which is known in the literature as cooperative breeding, or helpers at the nest. And these birds literally, right now, are helping at a nest of their mother and their stepfather. Last year, of course, there were other birds, such as the one sitting on your head, that help raise these. So there's a cooperation within these families or clans that we're interested in studying.
And that, of course, was why we wanted to film them. The helpers didn't see us as a threat, but they gave us a perfect demonstration of how to see off real intruders.
Do you manage to retain a scientific, dispassionate view, or do you actually develop favorites among them?
I have to remain objective about it in order to study science. So when we see a bird about to be depredated or a bird that seems hungry, we don't change its natural behavior because we want to study nature. Secretly, perhaps, once in a while, there are birds that one of us likes a little more than that, but we can't help them.
This relationship between man and bird has been going on not just for 20 years, but for at least 20,000. The Honey Guide will lead you to a nest of wild bees if you understand its signals. This has been studied by Hussein Isaac from the National Museum in Nairobi.
Where I come from, in northern Kenya, we use the bird to find honey. It's a very important bird to us. So I've always been very interested to find how this behavior works, what the benefits are for the bird and for people.
So you have known Honey Guide since you were a small boy?
Yes, yes. I followed it as a young boy, but I never looked at it as sort of scientist.
So what have you discovered as a result of this work?
First of all, honey guides know the locations of all bee colonies in an area. And so when they find a person, they take him straight to the nearest bee colony. Previously, it was so that when the birds find a person, they get excited, and then they start flying in front of you, looking for bee colonies at the same time. This is not true. In fact, they already know where the bees are, and the guiding route is fairly straight.
So that means that the Honey Guide as a bird has a map in its mind of a very big territory.
Yes. If the colony is far, say 2 kilometers, the bird will fly straight and then come back after, say, 2 or 3 minutes. So it's as if it has to go and establish the direction, which is difficult because the whole place looks the same.
And that means, too, that the birds must explore their area and find all the bees' nests.
Yes, yes. In fact, the thing is, if you sit near a bee colony in a hide and don't make any noise, you will find in the morning several birds come to check and fly away. And so they seem to check in the morning whether a honey badger or a person has attacked the bees in their absence and see if they can find something.
So they even update their knowledge?
Yes, yes, they do. When the bird arrives at a bee colony, the guiding call changes. And so you know, or the honey hunters know, before they reach the colony, that the bird has arrived, which is very important because some people may give up if they follow the bird in the bush, it's so difficult with acacia thorns, people do give up. So what the bird has evolved is a way of telling a person, we have arrived, now look for the colony.
Better. Thank you, Mazuri. The bird has not only led us to honey, it has posed for us to film it, and that certainly deserves a reward. But how could this relationship have started?
It is thought that guiding behavior may have started with the honey badger.
The honey badger?
Honey badger, yes. Because honey badgers do dig up bee business if the bees nest in underground where they are accessible to the badger. So it is thought that maybe this behavior started with the badger. And so what I want to do is to see if this actually happens.
And how are you going to find that out?
Well, I have got a model car which I operate remote with this thing, and I have a badger.
Yes, I can see
on it. Yes, and if the bird does indeed guide a badger, it should respond. Obviously, I've got to operate the thing from a height.
Have you tried it yet?
I am trying. The problem is, of course, the terrain in this area is quite rough, and this little car gets stuck all the time. So I have got to go and help it, and the bird will seize me. But I have started, and I think they will probably respond if they do guide the Brio badger.
In the Serengeti, another scientist uses electronic gadgetry to investigate his subjects. Craig Packer and his team work with lions. A powerful loudspeaker and a very long lead. The truck driven away to a safe distance, and a recording of the roar of a particularly powerful stranger.
The advantage of the playback experiment is that's the one thing that we feel that we can actually intervene and actually create a situation to elicit the behavior so that we can actually watch in detail in a controlled situation. It seems that much of the roaring has to do with their territorial behavior. If they have just chased away a stranger from their territory, then they'll roar, sort of as a parting shot to the retreating opponents. But often it seems that they're roaring more to stay in contact with their pride mates. The pride is often split up and spread out over a wide area, and it seems that they might be roaring to find out where their companions are at any time. And they show a really interesting variety of cooperative behaviors. They hunt together, they rear their cubs together, and they defend these group territories.
We filmed Craig's lions tackling buffalo in the only way they can, as a team. Lions are such familiar animals that you might think that we know all about their behavior, but not so.
They generally seem to surprise us with what they're actually up to. How do they know that if they were to live in a pride of 10, that they'd actually do better than if they were a pride of 11? And then we say, but they can't do that. I mean, they can't count to 10. Then we look at our data and we find, well, they do mostly live in prides of 10 or less. So it is as if they do make some of these decisions, and we haven't got the least idea how they do it. We assume they use certain rules of thumb, that in a certain situation, say I'm a little bit hungrier than I would be if I did something else. And so it's not that they're actually counting to 10, but that maybe something happens between 10 and 11 that we can't see, and they see something that correlates with that.
After 25 years of study, do you think now that you can actually
empathise into the mind of a lion, that you can really know what it's feeling?
Well, not really. A few things seem straightforward. If they're to kill, or if a male is guarding a female, they seem very possessive. And it's obvious when they're hungry. But for the rest of the time, it's really quite difficult to try to understand what's going on in there. And if you, say, look into the eyes of a baboon, you sort of get the sense of wheels turning, and you do get a sense of, yes, I understand a little bit what this animal might be thinking about for its next move. But when you look into the eyes of a lion, it's like cold fish. And it's just nothing. You just cannot really read into it in the same way.
The Sahara has one advantage for anyone studying animals. It's such a simple environment, it should be easy to sort out what's affecting an animal's behavior. There aren't, of course, many animals, but there is one, an amazingly accomplished ant. Cataglyphis comes out at midday when the sand is at its hottest to collect insects killed by heat stroke. And after wandering about in all directions over the featureless sand, it can still run straight back to its nest hole. How does it know which way to go? The man who discovered the answer and made Cataglyphis famous amongst ants, Rudiger Wehner, was still busy with his apparatus.
What exactly is this extraordinary device?
This trolley is an almost perfect tracking device for following accurately the coordinates of an ant. In fact, there is an ant walking in the center of this, and we now follow its every movement. This ant has left its underground burrow to search for prey, and it has found a piece of food, which it now carries straight back to its home.
So you can see exactly which direction it's going in and plot its course.
Yes, to find its way, the ant would use the position of the sun as a cue and other sources of skylight information.
And then what about these extra bits on your device?
By these devices, I can really show that the ants use the sun as a compass. I now block off the direct light from the sun and turn this mirror and reflect the light from the sun onto the ant. So for the ant, the position of the sun has now shifted by 180 degrees.
I see, yeah.
And actually the ant turns around and now walks away from home.
Well, it proves it. It's very unkind.
You see it?
Yeah.
Still walking away from the home, not knowing what it is doing.
And is it only the sun? So if the sun goes in, does it get lost?
Now, in addition, it would use a pattern of polarized light in the sky, but this pattern of polarized light is now blocked off by this orange filter you see in the center of this trolley.
Well, wait a minute. Polarized light. We can't see polarized light.
No, polarized light is invisible to the human eye, but insects can see it because they have built into their compound eyes certain sets of tiny polarizers by which they perceive the polarized light and use it as a compass.
So there's a pattern in the sky all around us that we can't see.
Exactly, a complicated pattern. And the polarizers in the eye of the ant are a mirror image of this pattern. And the ant scans the sky to get the best possible fit of its own analyzer pattern and the outside polarizer pattern.
Astounding.
So Rudiger Wehner has shown that a tiny creature like an ant has an astonishingly advanced computing capacity. But one answer just prompts more questions, and he's still working away. His subjects do at least come out into the open. Other insects with equally astonishing talents live almost entirely below ground. Termites. Several million live in a single community, largely ruled by a huge bloated egg factory, the Queen. And they build some of the biggest constructions made by any animals. To see inside these fortresses, a delicate approach is no good. You need a pick, a shovel, and a big hole. Mark Collins showed us.
Here's one I prepared earlier. Let's go in and have a look. Well, here we are in the cellar, directly beneath the main nest of the termites, and above us, unknown to science until just a few years ago, these clay veins, spiral veins, going round and round under this huge clay plate, which serves to cool the colony.
It's absolutely spectacularly beautiful, I must say. But haven't we killed this colony now by digging this hole out?
By our actions here, no, I think not, because the termites unbelievably can move 100 weight or more of soil overnight, and they can soon seal up this hole. But unfortunately, we're here on the edge of a farm, and it's the activities of the farmers that kill off these nests by ploughing the soil, and they destroy the galleries of the termites, and they cannot survive that. In these soils, the termite populations can get up to even 4,000 or 5,000 in a square metre of soil. And once the bush is cleared, then a lot of those termites start to feed on the crops that the farmers are trying to grow. In some cases, like the nest that we've seen, those species die out, but others become pests.
You've spent a lot of years studying termites. Would you actually be sorry if they were exterminated?
I'd be very sorry indeed. I think that they are a crucial part of the recycling of materials, of nutrients through the ecosystem. They're very much the engine of the whole ecosystem, turning over the dead plant litter and bringing it back into the soil. Many predators depend upon them for their everyday sustenance. But not only that, I think that when you look at the way in which they run their societies, they're so efficient that one can only admire them. There's so little waste, almost none, in fact, on these fungus gardens. They recycle everything, so unlike ourselves, in fact. You know, I think there are things we can learn from. I think the world would be a worse place without them.
Even with the best advice, of course, filming doesn't necessarily go smoothly and without interruption.
They move around in a flock, scratching around for what they can get. Apparently...
Cut. Cut.
I've got sweat in my eyes, I just can't see. I burned my thumb. And they are remarkably sweet and delicious.
And also gritty. But you wouldn't want anything to go wrong here. We had read detailed scientific accounts of how these killer whales, orca, plunder the colony of sea lions on this beach in Patagonia. But although scientists can tell you what is happening, in the end, it's the cameraman who has to get the shots. And Paul Atkins took on the job.
How practical did you think it was going to be?
Well, we thought it was going to be very practical to get good shots from the beach of whales attacking sea lions, because according to scientist Juan Carlos Lopez, it happened fairly predictably at predictable places on the beach, so we knew we could probably get something. The very first day we arrived, Juan Carlos took us to a hot spot on the beach and said, sit here for a minute. It was the right time in the tidal cycle, and a whale came charging out of the water and grabbed a sea lion. And Juan Carlos was just so pleased that indeed it had happened like he said it was going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
But after watching that for the first couple of weeks, and also watching them take the sea lion pups out, toss them around like they were having some volleyball game, it was quite horrifying to watch. We concluded that it would be suicide to get in the water with the whales. We checked around with divers around Argentina, and they all said, don't ever get in the water with orca. And the scientist, Juan Carlos, who had studied these particular individual whales for 17 years, had never been in the water with them. But there was no problem getting shots from the safety of the beach. Well, the main spot that we got most of the shots of the whales sliding up on the beach and grabbing sea lions was an area we call the dead zone, and it was an attack channel. In fact, the killer whales would be lying out at the beginning of the channel, waiting. Sea lions would cross this channel, and if there was a group of adults, they usually made it across without eliciting any response from the orca. But if there was one little pup in that group, there could be 5 adults and 1 pup hidden in that group. The orca from 100 yards out detected that and charged right in. But there was another angle that we wanted to get, which was lying right on the beach, like a seal, unfortunately, right in the dead zone. What we were trying to do was get a point of view shot, as though it was the point of view of the killer whale. This is my partner, Mike Degree, lying in front of the colony. Now, he's in quite a bit of danger here, because this is exactly where the whales beach themselves. And he wouldn't be lying quite like this with his back to the ocean unless we knew that this was not the time of day in which the whales were going to attack. Now, the other way this technique came in handy was turning the camera around and pointing towards the ocean while the whales were attacking, to get those low-angle shots that feel like the whales are bursting out of the screen and into your living room. We wanted to try and just get some shots from a boat, just to try and get that much closer to the whales, just to get some fins passing by and so on. As far as Juan Carlos knew, this was the first time the whales had ever seen a boat in the water with them. And it's a little tiny 12-foot Zodiac. There was some surf that day, and we had a little trouble getting the Zodiac in the water. And we finally got through the surf, and we were getting all the camera gear arranged in the boat and everything. And the driver was trying to start the engine, a little outboard motor, and it wasn't starting. And we'd like drifted out about 20 feet from the shore now, and the waves are crashing. We looked up, and here comes this huge fin. One of the males had just done a right-hand turn and whoosh, headed straight for the boat. And this is a dorsal fin that sticks out of the water 5 feet tall, so it's a pretty intimidating fin. And it was obvious, there was nothing else in the water that it was oriented towards. It was coming straight for the boat. And, you know, one of Juan Carlos's worries, which he expressed to us, was, well, maybe he's going to think this is a rival whale that has moved into his territory. So we saw that, and we were yelling to the pilot, start the engine, start it up, and he's going like that. And finally, just like out of a movie, actually, finally, just as the whale got about 30 feet away from the boat, he started the engine up, and the whale was one of the males, called Mel, just sort of curved around and looked at us, tilted his fin down, because they do that when they look up, and sort of looked at us and circled around the boat, checked us out, and left. So the next day, I thought, if that whale does the same, circling around the boat, all I have to do to get an underwater shot is dip my camera into the water. Just stay in the boat safely and dip it in the water. So we had the same experience. We got in the water. The whale, this time a different male whale, Bernard, who had not checked the boat out the previous day, saw us and headed straight for the boat. Came in, circled around the boat, and came up very close to the boat. I stuck my camera in the water and pulled the trigger, and the trigger didn't work. Oh. It's one of those horrifying moments in filmmaking, and I've got this perfect shot in front of the lens, and the camera's not working. So I was extremely upset about not getting that shot, and I thought that was the last opportunity to get it, because the whales probably weren't going to approach the Zodiac again, having sussed it out, and they were not curious about it anymore. But what happens is, besides the fact that as you're on location, the longer you're on location, I think the more obsessed you get with getting a better shot. That's one thing, so you get a little crazy. But the other thing is that we were watching the behavior of the sea lions for quite a while, and we noticed that they preferred sea lion pups, which are very small. So we thought that the whale should be able to tell the difference between us and pups. So that night, Mike and Keith Turner and I huddled, and we thought, well, it's time to get in the water with the whales. We thought we had watched them enough that we could take that chance. So that's the way we played it the next day. We went out, we put the Zodiac in the water. Now, again, we had a problem with the whales weren't going to approach the boat anymore, so we had to position ourselves right in the attack channel. And so when the tide was right, the whales would start heading down this channel, which led to the sea lion colony. So we thought, we plop ourselves right in that channel. We've got to see them underwater passing by. So we putted up, anchored right on the edge of the kelp forest. And we saw the fins, about 100 yards down, coming down the channel. So I started getting on my scuba gear. Juan Carlos looked at me. Juan Carlos started putting on his scuba gear. And I started getting my camera ready, and he had a still camera, and he was getting his camera ready. He was looking at me, and I looked at these fins. There's 2 fins coming down the channel. So I jumped over, held onto the side of the boat, and Juan Carlos jumped over.
Really?
Really. It's the first time he had ever done it. And now the thing about trying to get an underwater shot of the whales is the visibility. The water's really murky, so the visibility is about 5 to 10 feet. And so you've got a 30-foot whale looming out of the murk at you. So you didn't want to dive under and wait in the murk and look around and say, well, where's it going to come from? So you wanted to keep your head up, watch the fin to the last minute, and then duck under. And I also wanted to hold onto the boat to the last minute to give me that option of, well, I've made a mistake. So I'm holding onto the boat, camera's in this hand, the boat's in this hand. Juan Carlos is behind me, Keith Turner's up at the engine just in case of trouble. And Keith's saying, they're coming, Paul, they're coming. You better swim out in the channel now. And I'm going, I see him, Keith. I'm waiting I'm going to swim out. I'm going to swim out. And these huge fins, I mean, talk about hearing the Jaws theme music. Huge fins are coming straight for us. And I thought, there was just that instant when I thought, we've made the wrong decision. These whales are not going to be friendly. Just that moment of fear, and then I thought, I can't jump back in the boat. I'll be so embarrassed. Out of the gloom materialized the head of this orca, and it looked at us, slowly swam by. That was our first encounter. We came up and Juan Carlos's eyes, I'm sure mine were too, were about that big, and he was just exhilarated at having finally seen his whales underwater. And that was Mel, a male that he's watched for 17 years, just watching the back and the dorsal fin and bursting out of the water feeding, but had never been that close to the animal. And we tried to be very objective about it when we made the decision the night before. We looked at all the pros and cons and thought, well, finally, we thought we could do this. But when it comes down to that moment, it's just, are you going to jump in the water or not? And you're not quite sure until that moment comes.
Research into animal behavior is going on all over the world. Some will provide the knowledge essential for the conservation of the species concerned. Some may have wider applications and help us develop techniques that animals themselves evolved millions of years ago. But all help us towards an understanding of the world as a complex living entity and of our own place in it. For only if we have that are we likely to be able to maintain the diverse magnificence of life on Earth and ensure that next year, too, there will be elephants and lions, army ants and chimpanzees, and a chance, once more, to go into a termite mound.
This, 6 feet below the surface of the ground, is the cellar of the fortress. Its floor is studded with shafts which go down as much as 12, 14 feet. Did something go wrong with the words?
We could do with another take if you're willing to go.
Yeah. This, 6 feet below the surface of the ground, is the cellar.